Welcome back to Workshop Wednesday. I'm Chelsea Bussemeyer. Thanks for joining me today in my workshop, and today we get to actually do some work. Who's ready for an actual sew-along tutorial? If you're part of my email list, then you got an email this Monday about this glorious sewing accident. So I created this garment, designed it as a maxi skirt, wide waistband, flowy, really flowy maxi skirt. And after I made it, I realized since I did the waistband here double thick, that you can actually slide some bra cups in. Whoa, lose the head of my mannequin there. You can actually just slide some of these foam bra cups right into the waistband. And turn it into a dress. Now, I know some of you messaged, especially on my Facebook group, and said you loved the dress, but you didn't quite understand how to put it together. So I thought, why not do a sew-along tutorial today for Workshop Wednesday, and then you're ready to go. You can make yourself a summer dress. This dress is also awesome for a wrap, for like a swimsuit cover-up wrap. And depending on how you accessorize it, you can make it really formal. I love to just still knot the waistband and then have some ties. Tie around your neck like a halter. You can also do it more like a little off-centered here. You can also just wrap the ties up directly straight into a halter. This looks a little bit more beachy wrap dress style, and I've also done it where I've knotted it in the back and kind of wrapped the straps around. You can slide the cups all the way through, do it strapless if you want. There's a lot of ways you can actually tie this. I'm just gonna pull it around, slide the cups through. There we go. Now we have the strapless version. If strapless isn't your thing, you can even make little spaghetti straps and sew them on. That would kind of take away the versatility of it. If that was the only way you wore it though, or wanted to wear it, you could totally do it that way too. But this is just a fun dress because it's so comfortable for summer, whether you're going for dinner on a patio or, like I said, going to the beach, throw it on over your swimsuit. Last tip before we get started cutting for all you busty girls. If you need to do a full bust adjustment on your patterns, or if you're busty, get ready for the easiest full bust adjustment you've ever done. Because the waistband then becomes the area that goes over the bust, whatever way you tie it. If you need to adjust the bust, you need to make a wider waistband. So I'm gonna use a waistband width of 32 centimeters is what I'm gonna cut, and then it's gonna be folded in half, so it will be half that. So it'll be 16 centimeters. So it's just gonna be a narrow little waistband like on here because I am very small busted. But if you are chesty, then just kind of measure over your bust what you think would be a comfortable kind of length to fully cover your bust. Now, because it's stretchy, it will stretch a little bit more, so don't give yourself too much room because then it might end up hanging down a little bit lower, but just give yourself a measure there right over the bust, whatever type of measurement you like to use, centimeters, inches, and make your waistband that width instead of the width that I make it. Now, this will mean that you don't have as much material to gather in the skirt, but that shouldn't be a problem. I've made this gown for a lot of bridesmaids and even bigger girls, so you could probably just use the width. If your material is an average width, then just use that same width to make this dress and just have a few less gathers. If you are a little bit bigger, even probably up to size 20, you would be fine without adding any extra material, but it depends how wide your material is and how much you cut off for your waistband. So let's get started. As Marianne quite correctly commented on my Facebook group, if you do change it from a skirt to a dress, the length would vary. If you want a full length, floor length maxi dress, then it will be too long as a skirt just because it drops down however many inches it is from your bust chest area to your waist. However, if you do have it the correct length for a maxi skirt, then you can just pull it up as a dress and it'll be a little bit shorter. When you do tie it in the halter form, then it does have a little bit of a high-low effect just because it does pull up a little bit higher the way it ties around your neck and droops down a little bit lower in the back. Now, to cut out this fun dress, first of all, you need twice the length, the length that you want, either from your waist to the floor or from under your rib cage to the floor in fabric. So that's the full length. I'm gonna do 120 centimeters from kind of under my bust to the floor. So that twice. So I have a total of 240 centimeters of fabric. So 2.4 meters. And to cut this dress out, we also don't fold it in half. So oftentimes when you cut out really anything, you fold the material in half the long way. So what we're gonna actually do right now is we're gonna fold it in half the short way. So instead of folding it in half the way it goes on the bolt, we're gonna fold it up and back on itself, about 120 centimeters. Now I'm super excited for this dress because look at this beautiful turquoise material I get to work with. The main thing you want to think about when picking your material is to just not pick something that's too stiff. If it's too thick and bulky, then when you gather it up under your waist, it'll just kind of poof and pouch out and you might end up feeling a little bit pregnant. My little sister is expecting right now and she's gonna wear my gray one like this for some photos with her tummy. So this is a great gown if you are expecting, but for all of us that aren't, we don't want to look like we are. So make sure that you have a material with a heavy enough drape and thin enough, soft enough that even when we do gather it all the way around, it's not adding too much bulk. And if you do find it still a little bit too bulky, then you can just take some width out. It will end up making the skirt not quite as flowy if you do take some of the width out in the circumference, but it won't just have so much bulk kind of around the middle. But before we get to that, if you're a little bit confused already, let's just go back to cutting the way that we were from the beginning. And actually, let me just switch over to time lapse so it doesn't take too long. Wow, that was a little more tedious than I anticipated. But now I have my fabric completely doubled over on itself the long way. So this is the grain line direction, and then I folded it up and over exactly 120 centimeters. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna trim off the selvage edge, and then I'm gonna measure my waistband width. So my full waistband width plus my seam allowance is gonna be 32 centimeters. I'm just gonna quickly trim down this selvage edge. Now that I have the selvage edge removed, I'm going to just measure 32 centimeters across the entire length. So 32 centimeters. I'm just going to put in a couple of markings and then connect my markings. And then we'll just connect all of those markings. So we have a nice straight line. Okay, so this is going to be our waistband tie. Okay, so now we have one big long tie. So the tie is actually going to be laying cross grain, obviously, because we cut it along the whole length. But this particular single jersey that I'm using has a little bit more elasticity in the cross grain, so it will have a little bit more support when we tie the waistband tight, so it works better than the actual side grain or the right left cross stretch is super stretchy. So by the time we would get it fitted, it would pretty much be almost like see-through. So now that we've got our waistband cut out, we just need to cut the skirt part. So with the remainder of the material, I'm just going to trim off the selvage edge from the other side. I'm going to separate my material from the bolt since I've just unrolled it from the bolt, so I have longer than the 240 if you just purchase 2 meter 40 of your fabric or double double the length you want to have, then you won't need to make that cut. But after that, then the only thing I have left to do is just separate it into two pieces. So I'm just going to cut right along this fold line and separate it into two even pieces. So now it's already all cut out. The next step is to get to the sewing machine. Now I've decided on this particular dress, I want to have two slits. So the side seams, now that we have two panels, we have a front and a back. The side seam, I'm actually only going to stitch halfway closed. So I'm just going to stitch it about 60 centimeters closed and leave 60 open. So I'm going to put a couple pins in, one at the top and then one where I want to stop sewing on either side. And before I get started sewing, I'm also just going to notch the top. So now that I put my pins in, I know which side's going to be top, which side's going to be bottom. And I'm just going to notch the center front and the center back by simply folding it over. So I know exactly where half is, and then I know where my center front and my center back is. So now I've got my sewing machine or my serger all set up, and I'm going to use just a 3-thread overlock to close my side seams. You could definitely use a 4-thread for a little more security. If you don't have a serger, you can literally use a plain regular straight lock stitch, as there's no strain really on the side seams of this skirt since it's so flowy. So you could definitely just use a regular stitch. You could use a zigzag stitch or any type of a knit stitch that you like. Now the waistband, when we attach that, you definitely want to use a stretchy stitch. So if nothing else, then definitely a zigzag stitch, but I'm going to use the serger with the 3-thread overlock through the entire process. So let's go and close our side seams, either partway like I'm doing to leave a slit or all the way down. Now that I've got my side seams closed, I've just knotted and trimmed the threads of the end of my serging chain, just because I can't backstitch it at all. So I just knotted it off and trimmed them off so it won't unravel at all and it's nice and secure. Using a regular sewing machine, you can just backstitch at the end of your stitch. And the next step is along the top. So the top edge, the edge that I've put my center front, center back notches in, I'm just going to run a couple of gathering stitches. So just a regular chain stitch, just going to use white thread since that's what's on my sewing machine, because I'm going to remove these stitches after I put on the waistband. And we're going to gather up this top edge into our skirt. So the measurement we need for gathering this edge is our waist measurement minus 1 or 2 inches. So because it's so stretchy, we're working with negative ease here, and we want it to be nice and snug around our waist at the waist point. So take your waist measurement, subtract 1 or 2 inches. That's the length you want to cut your piece of elastic. So whatever kind of elastic you're going to use, cut it that length. And that's also the circumference measurement we're going to use for gathering up our waist after we put in our gathering stitches. So I'm going to start with mine just at the center back. So pick a side to be the center back and add those in. So now I've gathered up my entire waistband so that it's a teeny bit smaller. I did about 1.5 inches smaller than my actual waist, and I've just evenly gathered it up all the way around. And the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut your piece of elastic the same size. So whatever you deducted for your negative ease, cut a piece of elastic. I've got this, it's about 1/2 inch wide elastic, waistband elastic. I'm going to use, you can use really any kind of elastic, any color. It's going to be on the inside, and you're going to want to sew the 2 ends together so that it's ready to go. And I forgot to mention, when we cut out the actual fabric for the waistband, we didn't notch it. I do like to notch it just by folding it in half the long way and just putting a little notch in either side here so that we can line those up with the center front when we're sewing it on the skirt. So now that we've got our pieces prepped, it's time to assemble it. So I've actually stitched my elastic together here, so it's already in a circle, and I'm going to just place it. I've turned my skirt here right side out, and I'm going to place my elastic on the inside. Now I want this joint where I've stitched it together to be on a side seam because I don't want it to be too thick in the center front. And I also don't want it to be showing just because it's a thicker area at the center back, because that's where we're going to have the ties joined together. So the center front and the center back sometimes switch depending on if you are tying it in the back or tying it in the front. But I've definitely already put in these marks here where my waistband has all of its side and center back and center front. So I can just line this up with my notch that I already have. Marking and notch. Can line up this one with the side seam. There's my seam allowance in there. And line up this last marking here with the other notch. Where did it go? It disappeared in all of my gathers. Here it is. So line that up together so that I know it's all proportionally gathered. And then I'm going to take my waistband. So I do have this marking where the center front is. So again, it doesn't really matter because our center front and center back switch around. So I'm just going to line this up all together. And wrap the waistband around. So the waistband doesn't need to be stretched at all. It just needs to be lying smoothly. And the ends should be lining up. So I'm going to put in a few pins here just because we've got actually 4 layers, because the 2 layers of the waistband and then all of these gathers. So just to keep everything lined up, especially since the serger is a pretty narrow seam allowance, I really need to make sure that all of my ends are lining up so that it catches everything properly. And I'm just going to wrap half my waistband around till I get to the center back. So you might have noticed when I was doing the gathering stitch, or even here, that the cut edge, the raw edge of this material likes to curl. That is definitely something that's a common trait of knit fabrics, is that the cut edges like to curl. So you've got to make sure it's all uncurled. And then we get to line it up here with the center back. Hashtag sometimes center front. The center of the skirt panels, not the side seam. So we want to have that center middle in the center of one of the skirt panels, and then the tie end at the center of the other skirt panel with our seam allowance in the middle. So I'm just going to do the other side here, and then we'll be ready to stitch it closed. Now that I have both sides of the waistband pinned on, I'm almost ready to sew it. I'm just going to align my waistband here at the center where the extra length of the ties kind of meets up with each other. So I'm going to just slightly overlap them. So line up those 2 edges. It's attached to, will be attached to the cut edge here of the skirt, but the tie here continues. So I'm just gonna fold it down and out so it kind of rolls out and down. And then the other one I'm gonna lay on top, and it's gonna do the same thing. So I'll be stitching continuously, go kind of over top, and then the tie kind of fades out so that it can roll up and into the strap. But I want to make sure that I overlap just a few stitches here, otherwise you'll have a bit of a gape. So I'm just going to put this centering pin through all my layers, through the tie twice, through the skirt and through the elastic of the waistband. And now I'm just gonna stitch it with my serger all the way around, connecting all of the layers. So after you're done stitching it all the way around, just take it out from your machine and double check that you've cut everything, that it's all even, that you didn't miss a layer here or there or anywhere. If you do find it too tricky to sew all 4 layers, the 2 edges of the waistband, the skirt, and the elastic all at once, you can definitely do it in a couple steps. So just stitching one edge of the waistband to the skirt and then the other edge and then the elastic, or both edges of the waistband with the skirt and then the elastic, whatever works for you. I did it all together and that works totally fine too, whatever you'd like. So after you've double checked that it is all caught properly, then you can just remove your gather stitches here. So this is important that you have used a jersey needle. Whenever you work with a knit material, always use a jersey needle so that when you remove stuff like this, you don't have any holes. We don't want holes on the edges of our seams either, where the seams come together, but it's really important if you're removing any kind of stitching like this that you've used a jersey needle so that you don't, or a knit needle so you don't have any holes. Definitely need a ballpoint. And then if you haven't ever tried a spring-loaded snip, give one a try. It doesn't have to look like this. There's a lot of different spring-loaded snips, but I love spring-loaded snips for taking out stitching. And if you pull out the tighter side of your gathers first, then all the rest will just come pulling out super easily. So this is the side that I pulled tight when making my gathers. So I'm just removing that first, and then all the extra thread comes out. Yeah, so I'll just finish removing this and then try it on. It fits! Check it out! Ready for the beach? Ready for summer? And I can't even tell you how long it's been since I've actually sewn a garment for myself. So thank you for all of the comments on the email from Monday and giving me the inspo to do this for my workshop Wednesday video this week. And whenever I wear it as a dress, I usually just kind of knot it in the back rather than tie it in a bow when I wear it as a skirt. And then I would usually tie the waistband in a bow just because you have a little extra length, because you tie the bow kind of right at the waistband, whereas when you do the strap it takes a little longer. There's tons of ways to tie it. I've even thought maybe I should get like a brooch or something, do a little sparkly doodad something on the strap when I wear it as a dress too. So I hope you enjoyed this week's workshop Wednesday. If you have any questions still or unsure about anything, then leave me a comment, send me an email, and if you do want to be on my email list, then definitely let me know in the comments as well, and then you'll be able to get the Monday emails. Check out my Facebook group as always if you're not in there, and you can see the mini post as well on Mondays. Okay, till next week, happy sewing!